story time about how my husband ran away with his brother's wife on their wedding day. Disclaimers are not my story time. Send me on Instagram. My husband has been a serial cheater for the 5 years that we've been married. He started cheating on me 2 weeks after we got married. And no, he never bothered to hide any of it. Anytime I found out about an affair, I would ask him and he would be honest and tell me that yes, he was having an affair, but that he would end it. But of course I knew that once a cheater, always a cheater. So I never ever trusted him after that. I wanted to even the playing field, so I decided to have my own affairs. You see, I wanted to give him a taste of his own medicine so that he could see what it felt like. And he actually got psychotic when he found out that I cheated on him the first time. He even locked me in a room for 5 hours and questioned me. I told him that if he was going to cheat on me, then I was definitely going to cheat on him too. I know that this is incredibly toxic, but it was the only thing that I could think of to make him change his ways. That's when he finally decided that he would try to stay faithful to me for as long as he possibly could. But what do you know, 2 weeks later, he was already cheating on me again. He had a really rowdy group of friends and they would always go out to bars, so this is how he met these women. Of course, he'd tell them that he was single and these girls had no idea that he was married. So it's not like I could get mad at them. My husband is close to his brother and they would always hang out. When his brother got engaged and he met his fiance, I could tell that my husband was eyeing her from head to toe. That's when I told him that he needed to stay away from her, not only for me, but for his brother. And he swore that he would never ever do that to his own brother. But he could definitely do it to his wife, of course. We would see his brother and his fiance all the time. We would have dinners together, and that's when I started noticing that she was also staring at my husband. I would catch them constantly looking at each other. Eventually, I told my husband's brother, my brother-in-law, about the concerns I had of his fiance with my husband. He laughed and even actually got mad at me for suggesting such a thing. I told him that he would regret it if he didn't take action now. A few weeks before the wedding, my husband started acting really strange. He started going out every single night. He wouldn't tell me where he would go and he would leave his phone in the house. Sometimes he'd come back the following morning. A few days before the wedding, I decided to confront him about it. I knew that I didn't want to stress him out before the wedding, but at the same time, I couldn't live like this. I had this worried, sick feeling in my stomach every single night, and I would barely sleep knowing that he was out doing God knows what. When I asked him what was going on, he told me that I was overreacting and that he was just playing poker with his friends at his friend's house. I told him to call his friend on speaker so that he could confirm his story. That's when he threw a tantrum. He started slamming doors and cabinets in the kitchen, telling me that I was overreacting and that I needed to let him live his life. And he even mentioned divorce for the first time ever. He said he didn't want to be tied down to such a jealous woman. That's when I broke. I literally pulled out a list of all the women that he had cheated on me, the ones that I knew of. And I told him that he had broken my heart over 10 times that I knew of. And that I knew he would never stop and that the only thing that was fair for me was to at least have him be honest. That's when he hugged me and started to cry. And that was the first time I had seen him show any emotion towards my pain. He began to apologize and told me that he never meant to hurt me that way. We hugged and we just watched a movie and everything was back to normal. But I knew that nothing was back to normal and that he was hiding something. Finally, the day of the wedding comes and he is stressed. From the moment he woke up, he was pacing in the house, sweating. He even had 4 cups of coffee. I asked him what was wrong and he said that he was just nervous for his brother. We finally head to the church where everyone is already waiting. And when we get there, the first thing I see is the bride. She's standing outside the church with the suitcase. Without even turning to look at me, my husband tells me to get out of the car quickly. I asked him what was going on and he opened the door and pushed me out. That's when the bride jumps into the car with her suitcase and her wedding dress. And he drove off as fast as he could. I kept yelling at the top of my lungs. Of course, the entire family runs out of the church to see what's happening. That's when my mother-in-law told me that the wedding had already happened, but we had arrived late. And that right after they were married, the bride took the groom aside and told her that she didn't want to be with him. Of course, he got really upset and they got into a full blown-out fight in front of everyone. When he asked her where she was going, she said she had a ride prepared. She grabbed her suitcase and apparently walked out, and that's when my husband and I pulled up. The groom and I were absolutely devastated. I kept calling my husband and he kept calling his wife. But of course, they both ignored us. My parents-in-law were so upset that they even called the police to report his car stolen. This was in the hopes that they would at least find their car. But unfortunately, nobody found the car on the streets. This led us to believe that they were probably hauled up at some hotel. This is when I remembered that my husband really liked this one hotel that was by his job. He always told me that he would go there for drinks with his friends. So my family-in-law and I show up. And as soon as we get to the hotel, I see my husband and his now girlfriend having lunch in the restaurant at the hotel. Of course, we confronted them. We were all yelling at the top of our lungs and the hotel kicked us out. Finally, my father-in-law was able to talk some sense into my husband and make him realize what he had done. Not only had he ruined our marriage, but his brother's future as well. His brother was beside himself, so depressed and kept crying. And my mother-in-law had to take a sedative in order to calm down. My husband came to his senses and told his girlfriend that what they did was wrong. He looked at me and begged me for forgiveness, but of course, I didn't speak a word to him. My now sister-in-law / my husband's girlfriend, she decided to head straight to the airport and went back to her parents. It's been a few weeks now and my brother-in-law took her back. I still haven't forgiven my husband, but we're still living in the same house. I don't know what to do.
Am I the asshole for asking my roommate to spend less time with her husband and more time home? I, 21 female, moved in with my roommate, 27 female, at the beginning of the year after I answered her ad on Facebook. Originally, her husband also lived with her and they were both working on finishing their masters, but COVID caused a setback. He received a job opportunity, so they decided she would stay and finish while he went ahead and started his career. At first, I was nervous to room with someone who was older and also married, but we actually hit it off really well and had a lot of things in common. After 2 months, I considered her my best friend. Even though we were online last year, she didn't see her husband very often and I could tell she was having a hard time with it, but she said rooming with me reminded her of her old college days. I expected this semester would be like last semester, but she ended up going home to her husband a lot. She'd be gone for 2 weeks at a time and mostly only come back for a week. It was really lonely, and to be honest, it felt unfair because I signed on to have a roommate. I mentioned how often she was gone and she said, well, you knew I was married before you signed on. I tried to compromise with her and suggested she could at least spend 2 weeks here and 2 weeks with her husband. She got uncomfortable and refused to continue the conversation. Later, I asked her if she thought about what I said and she said no. I suggested she ask her husband for a second opinion and she said it would worry him and give him the wrong impression of our relationship.
Story time about when I messed up visiting a Nazi concentration camp. A few years ago, my uncle invited my friend and myself along to a trip to Poland. He was planning on visiting the Auschwitz Memorial Museum and the concentration camp. I said yes because I felt it was important for me to learn about the details of what went on. I was still quite young and had only learned more general information about the war and the camps, never really bothered to do my own research. You know how it goes. Standing next to the tour guide and the prisoner uniforms, absolutely mortified. The shirt I was wearing looked exactly like the prisoner uniforms. I had no idea that was what my friend was trying to warn me about, with bleach blonde hair and blue eyes to boot. When we get outside, I asked why no one said anything before we left. My friend said she did, so she figured I knew and was trying to make some kind of statement. Hadn't I ever seen the boy in the striped pajamas? I hadn't, nor any type of other media that showed the uniforms or details of prisoner life. Somehow I managed 18 years or so avoiding the specific detail that would come back to bite me. I was stuck feeling like an asshole for the rest of the day.
Am I the a-hole for not wanting to do Thanksgiving dinner at my parents without my wife? I, 30 male, feel stupid for even asking. My sister, 29, and my wife, 34, female, did not have the best history. Before we met, my wife was my sister's landlady, and she was renting the room at the back of my wife's house 6 years ago. She got evicted less than 4 months after moving in, because my sister did not pay her rent at all. Then she was taken to court for damages that costed way more than she put down on a security deposit. My sister did end up having to pay, but basically hated my wife for this. We met after this all went down, and I went to go pick up my sister's stuff she left behind that my wife was decent enough to not have thrown out yet. We started chatting and really hit it off. Started dating. A year and a half later, she got pregnant with our son. Now we are happily married, but my sister never took it well. We weren't this close before all this, but after becoming a traitor in her eyes, we didn't talk much. She hasn't even met my son, who's 3. My parents are really trying to push for us all to have a family Thanksgiving at their place. My sister never wanted to go because I'd be there with my wife, and she didn't want to see me. My parents never pushed it before because they didn't think my sister was being fair, considering the issues she has with my wife for all things she did herself. This year, they feel different though, since my sister broke up with her boyfriend of 6 years, and it's her first holiday without him. She, however, doesn't want to see my son or wife, so that's why they're asking if they be left at home. My wife doesn't have any other family.
Am I wrong for refusing to walk my daughter down the aisle? My daughter, 26 female, and I haven't spoken in years. When she was 15, we found out that she wasn't my biological daughter and my wife had cheated on me years ago with a friend. As it turns out, this so-called friend was suddenly interested in playing dad. My wife and I divorced, my daughter learned the truth, and I told her I still loved her no matter what. Of course, she was interested now in getting to know her biological father, and while it hurt, I tried to accept that. She started pulling away from me after that. Even when trying to still do things together as a family, she was no longer interested. The last straw was when she was 20 and living at my house. We were arguing because she had dropped from her college courses, hasn't done anything for 3 months, and was mad because I told her she either needed to go to school or work if she wants to stay here for free. She told me I can't even read it. So mean. She told me I'm not her real dad, so stop pretending like I am, and she'll just go to stay with her real father. That broke me, honestly. But I told her if that's how she really feels, then there's really nothing left to say between us. And she did move out to go live with him. I was depressed for a very long time, and I drank a lot. My son, 24 male, was my only reason to keep moving forward. For the first couple of years, I reached out to my daughter. She wanted no contact, and I learned to accept that and moved on. It helped me find more peace in my life. My son stopped talking to her for a while over this and was angry with her. They still chat sometimes, which doesn't bother me at all. Through him, I learned her biological father died in October 2019. She reached out to me first, saying she knows that we haven't talked in a while, but wants to ask me if I'd be willing to walk her down the aisle. After a pretty long message about how much she hurt me in the past with her actions, I told her no. She didn't want me to be her father anymore, so I learned to no longer view her as my daughter. This turned into a fight between us because, according to her, it's not her fault she wanted to know her real dad. And I agreed with her it's not, but what was her fault was how she treated me ever since. In my mind, I know if he hadn't passed, we wouldn't even be speaking right now. It ended with telling her I hope she enjoys her wedding, but I want no part of her life. My son told me she's ranting to my family that I'm ruining her date, and she thought parents are supposed to love their kids unconditionally. Oh, what a gaslighting bitch. Fuck her. Oh, I can't be swearing so much. Sorry. My brother seems to think that now I am being an asshole and that this is my chance to be in her life again, but I have no interest in that. Still seems that everyone has a strong opinion on it and that I'm making it difficult for my daughter to have the wedding she wants when it would mean a lot to her. My son is on my side, but the comments are still wearing me down, and just for the sake of my sanity, am I being an asshole?
I, 30 male, pissed my wife, 27 female off, and now she wants me to do everything. To begin, when I met my now wife, she had about $9K in credit card debt. She grew up in poverty, got her first credit card, and got into financial trouble with it. She told me about it pretty early on in the serious phase of our relationship, and even told me about her plan to fix it. Showed me her budget and had a time frame. To her credit, she did it. That was 5 years ago. We're now married with twins. She's a stay-at-home mom, but receives about $1,000 per month in VA disability and cleans houses part-time while our kids are in school. The $1,000 goes entirely to our mortgage, plus some of the money that she makes cleaning houses because she likes to put extra on the principal. So she has her own spending money. We do have one credit card, mine, of which she is an authorized user. I do stay vigilant about the card because I guess I never really let myself trust her with money. On to the problem. I noticed earlier this week, after years of good financial decisions and fiscal responsibility on her part, that the credit card seemed higher than normal. My wife hadn't mentioned anything, and I hadn't seen anything expensive coming into the house. So I was shocked to see charges from GameStop, grocery store charges outside of her normal shopping trip, a salon, Walmart, a movie theater, and Amazon. It came out to about $600, and I immediately realized she had a relapse. I confronted her in the kitchen while she was putting together something for our kids' class, and I admit I laid right into her. She agreed. She had messed up, would return everything and give me back the credit card. I thought this was an admission of guilt, which made me even more angry and demanded to know how much she spent on these Halloween goodie bags she was putting together because it looked expensive, and I didn't see why we would spend so much on first graders. And she said only $15, and she got everything at the dollar store. She told me that everything had been returned, and now I was in charge of the birthday party, the birthday presents, and the Christmas shopping, and the class Christmas party contribution, since I didn't trust her to do those things. Turns out all those charges were for the kids' birthday and birthday party at the movie theater. Christmas shopping she had actually finished for everyone we usually buy for, and even the salon charges were for our son's haircuts. Now she's returned everything, and even has told me grocery shopping is also my job now. I can't handle all that. I didn't even remember it was my kids' birthday soon. How do I fix this so we can go back to how it was? I've already groveled, and she just says I apparently have 5 years of groveling to do if all I've been waiting for is the other shoe to drop, when she's been nothing but exemplary when it comes to finances in all this time. Help, please.
Story time about how my husband's mistress tried to mace me and kidnap me. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. Husband and I have been married for 4 months. So yeah, not very long. We dated for 2 years and everything was pretty much okay. At the beginning of the relationship, I had my doubts about him. I earn a lot more money than he does, and he's always resented me for that. He makes comments and jokes about how I'm the one that brings the bacon home. Finally, I told him that he needed to stop doing that, especially in front of our friends and family. But other than that, we've had a really great relationship. I never thought that he was capable of ever cheating on me. We finally got married back in 2017. The wedding was so special and our families were there. Our honeymoon was amazing, and when we got back home, we both decided that we wanted to buy a house together. Or mostly, like, I decided to buy a house and he would give me some money. Obviously, this didn't bother me because I knew it was our forever home, so I didn't mind paying for it and having him help me with the rest. After we settled into our new home, my husband decided that he wanted to get a better paying job. Obviously, this made me really happy because it would give him more confidence if he was earning more money. He decided to switch to financing and he started working on Wall Street. 2 months after getting married, he started earning way more money than I did. This made him so happy. But he quickly started to change. He only bought expensive designer stuff. One thing I did notice was that he never invited me to go to his office. So like the good wife I am, I decided to surprise him at his office with lunch. And when I got there, I was greeted by his assistant. I didn't get worried because I didn't find her very attractive. She looked very plain Jane and homely. But when I finally saw my husband, I asked him why he didn't tell me that he finally got his assistant. He told me that he just forgot and he didn't think it was important. So I let it go. But I noticed that his assistant was trying to be overly nice to me. And she was also asking me a lot of questions about my husband. But like I said, I didn't feel insecure at all just because I didn't think she was very attractive. At the end of the year, my husband and I are invited to the Christmas party. Of course, his assistant is there, and she proceeds to get drunk and start telling me things like how I was so lucky to be married to my husband and how I should be more grateful to him. Obviously, I took offense. I went straight to my husband and told him what his assistant said to me. That's when my husband laughed it off and said that I was reading into it. 2 seconds later, he's in his office with her yelling at her. Part 2 is up. Part 2 of how my husband's mistress tried to mace me and kidnap me. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. That's when I catch my husband yelling at his assistant. All I could make out was that he was telling her to keep her mouth shut when she was around me. Obviously, these were all red flags. I decided not to say anything for the rest of the night, but his assistant kept drinking the entire night. That's when my husband pulled her aside and told her to go home. She started crying and she tried to hold his hand, and that's when I knew it. They were having an affair. Mind you, I didn't suspect anything. I just thought she wasn't very pretty. She was very plain Jane. I didn't think that my husband would ever find her attractive. After she left the party, I decided to pull my husband aside and ask him what was going on. I asked him if he was having an affair with her, and he told me the truth. He said yes. Obviously, this was really heartbreaking. We hadn't been married long. That's when he told me that he wanted independence from me because I was the one that paid for everything, and that he wanted to feel like a man, and that because I earned more money and paid for everything, he felt less of a man. Wow, great excuse. He promised to break things off because he had no feelings for her, and that he actually felt bad for using her because she was falling in love with him. I told him that he needed to fire her right away. The following day, he fired her, but she shows up at our doorstep. But of course, my husband wasn't home. As soon as I open the door and see that it's her, she pulls out pepper spray and sprays me in the face. I fall to the floor and she grabs me by my ankles and drags me to her car. She was like scary strong. She opened up her trunk door and actually tried to pull me inside, but she couldn't lift me. Luckily, one of my neighbors was there and started yelling at her to leave me alone. That's when she got in her car and drove off. The police pulled her over 2 miles away. In her car, she had a shovel and an axe. She told the cops that she was planning on aliving me so that she could stay with my stupid husband. She went to jail and my husband and I are still together. Should I get a divorce?
Storytime, my boyfriend beat up his ex-girlfriend because she tried to kill me. So it was my sophomore year in high school and I had just gotten with this guy who was fresh out of a relationship. And let me tell you a little bit about his ex-girlfriend. So before him and I even started dating, him and his ex-girlfriend were together for like 2 years. And guys, this girl was fucking psychotic. Like, let me give you a quick example. Last year, I had a class with him and her, and the teachers assigned partners for this one project. Well, her boyfriend got paired up with this other girl. And anybody who would even talk to her boyfriend would get jumped by her and 8 of her friends. So his girlfriend starts being buddy-buddy with this girl, and his girlfriend goes, "Oh, do you want to come to the bathroom to hit my dab pen?" So the girl says yeah, thinking that she's being all nice and shit. So they both go to the bathroom, and they're gone for like 25 minutes. So I asked to go to the bathroom because I want to see what's going on. So I walk into the auditorium bathroom, and nobody's really around that bathroom. And this bitch is getting beat the fuck up. Like for part 2. Okay, part 2. Okay, so like I said, I walk in and this bitch is getting her shit rocked. Like there were like 5 girls in there beating the shit out of her. All of them just look at me, so I walk out and go back to the classroom. And the one girl went to the hospital and the other girl got suspended. So back to present day. So after school that day, I get a ride with him and his friends to his house. Well, as we're all driving to his house, we realize that his ex-girlfriend's car is right behind us. And it's literally her and all of her friends. And at this point, my boyfriend's really fed up with her shit. Because she keeps following me around school, texting me saying she's gonna kill me, saying he got her pregnant, always says that he's been cheating on me with her. But my boyfriend pulls over the car, and at this point, I think it's a trap. I'm like, oh shit, he's gonna let me get beat the fuck up. Well, he tells me to stay in the car. He gets out and walks over to her driver's door and tells her to get out of the car. So her and all her friends get out, and one of her friends starts punching him. While he's distracted with that, his ex runs over to the car, opens the door, and pulls out a fucking knife. Like for part 3. Okay, part 3. She fucking has a knife up to my neck, screaming at me. And I'm staying quiet as fuck because I do not want to get my throat slit by this bitch. So all I see is my boyfriend rip this bitch out of the car and start stomping her in the fucking ground. And whenever he went and ripped her out of the car, the knife like slashed my leg open, so there's fucking blood everywhere. And we're like at the beginning of his cul-de-sac, so all the fucking neighbors are outside watching him stomp this bitch into the ground. And then one of her friends comes around the other side of the car, grabs me by my hair, rips me out of the car, starts beating the shit out of me. So then one of his friends starts beating up that bitch too. So obviously the cops were called. My boyfriend went to jail. She also went to jail. And after that happened, my parents made me move schools. But after that, word got around that they were dating again. Good luck to the next bitch.
Story time on how I cheated on my husband with his son. Okay, so boom, let's get right into it. So I met my husband at my job where we quickly fell in love, got married, and the rest is history. My husband had a child from a previous relationship who was 17 years old. By the way, I'm 27 and my husband is 34. My husband was really great at his job, but he started treating me really bad. He was always working and had me stay home because he wanted to be the provider. He also bought food for me when I was hungry since I don't cook, but sometimes it would just be food that I didn't want. Before he leaves, he kisses me and makes breakfast for the house as if that's going to make anything better, and only spends time with me on his one day off. It's ridiculous. Well, I started spending a lot more time with my stepson and we became really close. I started feeling something real between us, and my husband was being horrible. So I made my move. Like for part 2 on how I cheated on my husband with his son. Okay, so boom, like I said, my husband was treating me horribly, so I made my move. I started feeling something real between me and my stepson. We watched movies together, we went grocery shopping together, and plain just enjoyed each other's company. I felt something real between us, and I know he did too. One day, once again, while my husband was at work, my stepson and I started watching a Netflix movie. I thought it was the perfect time to just go for it. He was laughing at one of the scenes and I just took his face and I kissed him. He jumped up and pushed me and said, "Whoa, why the did you go and just do that?" Then I said, "I thought..." He just ran to his room and called his dad. My heart sank. My husband left me and took his son and divorced me too. Now I'm currently dating and have no luck, and he's remarried with a beautiful family. I can't find a guy half what my ex-husband was. Don't be like me.
Am I the a-hole for telling my daughter to get over herself? I was blessed with 3 beautiful children, and unfortunately my eldest, Brooke, passed away when she was 5 years old. It rocked my world, and I know I haven't been the same since. I went through therapy and still attend to this day, but a part of me died too. I will never let my daughter be forgotten. I bring pictures of her to events such as holiday celebrations and birthdays. I talk about her all the time. Every year on my living children's birthdays, I think of her and how her once younger siblings are now older than her. My other daughter, Marnie, is getting married next month. I asked her if she was having a memorial table, and she said no. I asked her about creating a seat for her sister who passed, as she should be a part of the day. Marnie told me no, that for once she wants a day about her. She says she couldn't have one event that wasn't about Brooke. Even her graduation, I had put a picture of her on the seat. She said I needed to stop making my grief front stage. I told her she was being incredibly selfish, and until she goes through a loss like this, she'll never understand. Marnie asked me if her kids would have to live under the shadow of Brooke too, and I told her she should be ashamed to get over herself. My son says I'm being terrible and I need to reevaluate my life. Am I the a-hole? Am I the a-hole for choosing my son over my stepdaughter? I, female 32, have been married to Mark, male 36, for 6 years. Mark had a child, Sarah, female 12, with Allie, ex-girlfriend, who is starting high school next year, meaning she needs a computer for school. We also have a child together, Alex, male 5. The issue arose last week when my husband asked me to contribute 1/3 of the cost for Sarah's computer, saying it could be a Christmas present for all of us. Sarah wants a MacBook, and they decided on the latest MacBook Pro, over $2,000 after Apple Care, accessories, etc., with my share totaling at least $700. I make significantly less than my husband, and before this year, we would stick to a budget and have the costs together. This year, the budget I scheduled was $200 per kid. I typically handle all Christmas shopping, but run everything past Mark. I told Mark that was double what we spent each Christmas, and I wasn't aware until now that I was expected to chip in the costs. I said if I'd had time to save, I might have, but on short notice, it wasn't possible, and suggested we look at cheaper options, which was quickly shot down. I told him that I could contribute $200 for my savings, but no more, so we still had to buy presents for Alex. This wasn't received well by Sarah, Allie, or Mark, and they said I was selfish for not helping out, and Sarah was devastated as she took this as me favoring Alex over her. I don't liking/wanting her. The suggestion was that I don't spend much money on Alex, and give the money to Sarah instead, but I refused, since I didn't consider that fair to Alex. I didn't want him upset that he didn't get any/many presents for Christmas. This has had a severe impact on my relationship with Sarah and Allie, and Mark thinks I should do this to prove my love for Sarah. Sarah has 3 people contributing to presents while Alex only has 2, so Sarah typically gets more presents anyway, but we always keep things fair.
Story time about how my boyfriend is bullying me into losing weight. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. My boyfriend and I have been together for 2 months. He's a personal trainer, so he's really into fitness. When we started dating, I wasn't super fit, but I definitely was toned. Unfortunately, I got the Rona, so I got fired from my job because I couldn't work for 2 weeks. I was super sick and I really became depressed. I basically sat on my couch for those 2 weeks and ate a lot. Before I knew it, I had gained 7 pounds. When I finished my quarantine, I finally was able to see my boyfriend. And when he first came into my house to see me, he looked shocked. He looked me up and down and said, "Did you gain weight?" I said, "Yeah, I probably gained like 7 or 10 pounds. And then he asked me how I could let myself go like that. I told him I was totally by myself, cooped up in my apartment, and I had nothing else to do but eat. And that's when he said, and I quote, "Well, we need to get you back into the gym to get you in shape again, because I don't want a fat girlfriend." I laughed because I thought for sure he's joking, but then he said, stop laughing, it's not a joke. My stomach sank and I felt like I was gonna poop my pants. I started to cry and he told me that I shouldn't be a baby, that he's allowed to be honest with me about stuff like this because it has to do with him being attracted to me. So in other words, he wasn't attracted to me anymore. That's when he went into my room, picked out a pair of leggings and a sweatshirt, told me to get dressed, and took me straight to the gym. He made me exercise for an hour and a half. Instead of getting upset about it, I decided to just take it in stride and go with it. I thought maybe I can get in the best shape of my life now that I have a trainer boyfriend. As we were working out, he kept commenting on my thighs. He said that they needed to have a gap and that instead of being muscular, I was super soft. After he told me that I was soft at the gym, I started to cry again. I told him that I needed to be more sensitive towards my feelings and that I didn't want to be in a relationship if he was going to be like this toward me. That's when he said that he didn't want to be in a relationship with me because I had gained weight and that's not what he had signed up for. That's when he told me I needed to look around and see all the fit women in the gym and that he could have any of those girls. I was in utter shock. I just couldn't believe that he was talking to me like that and I had never seen that side of him before. The more I cried, the angrier he got, but finally he said, okay, I'm sorry, let's just do 20 minutes on the Stairmaster. That's when I told him I didn't want to work out anymore. Mind you, he had already had me at the gym for an hour and a half. That's when he said, fine, I'll take you home, but I'm coming back to the gym. The whole way home, he stayed quiet and gave me the cold shoulder while I cried. He pulled up to my house and I got out of the car and he literally sped away as fast as he could. He proceeded to give me the cold shoulder for the next 2 days. I finally broke and texted him telling him we needed to speak. That's when he said we could talk at the gym. I agreed and he went to pick me up. But the first thing he wanted to do at the gym was put me on a scale and weigh me. He was trying to force me to get on the scale so that he could weigh me because he wanted to see how much weight I could lose in 1 week. I kept saying no, but then he said fine. Then he handed me a piece of paper and said, here's the diet I want you to follow for the next 4 weeks. I grabbed the piece of paper and just put it in my purse. Then he has the audacity to get mad at me for not even looking at the diet. He said that I was disrespectful and that I didn't even look at the diet and that it took him hours to write all of that out. And then he said the thing that crushed my heart. He would be embarrassed to take me around his friends and family with the way that I looked. As soon as he said that, I ran out of the gym and walked home. Of course, he followed me and told me to get in the car, but I refused. I finally got to my house and he called me. I told him I needed some time away from him and that his behavior was extremely toxic, and that if I didn't have a problem with my weight, neither should he. That's when he said that he was accustomed to only being with girls that were super fit and even had abs. He told me that at first he wasn't convinced if he should date me, but I had a really pretty face, and that he was willing to overlook the fact that I wasn't super fit. He's a total narcissist, but I'm still in love with him. I tried to break up with him, but he said no, and he's still insisting that we just go to the gym together at least. I don't even know how to respond to him. What should I say?
Am I the a-hole for not allowing my ex-mother-in-law to have a key to my house? So me and my ex have been separated for 2 years. We're separated on good terms and we get on well despite our differences. We do have a 3-year-old daughter, and he works a lot, so he doesn't get to have our daughter often. For this reason, I gave him a spare key to my house so that he could pop in and see us whenever he wanted. I completely trusted him with his key. For context, I have never had a good relationship with my ex-mother-in-law. She's always hated me and accused me for ruining her son's life by getting pregnant so young. I was 18. She hates me so much that when I was pregnant with our daughter, she threatened to take me to court to gain full custody of my daughter. When I found this out, I was of course furious and did confront her. They were empty threats, as I honestly think she knew she'd be fighting a lost battle. She despises me, and honestly, I'm not her biggest fan either. I haven't much interacted with her since I left my ex, except from the fortnightly visits where I take my daughter to her house. Well, my ex has been coming over to the house as usual, but has not been using his key. At first I thought nothing of this, but it became more frequent, and so I said if you're not going to use your key, I'll have it back. He then informed me that his mom had asked for the key so that she had access to the house, and to see her granddaughter whenever she wanted. He told me he agreed. I lost my temper completely. After everything I'd gone through in the past, I had absolutely no idea why he thought it would be a good idea to give his deranged mother my key. I told him I wanted it back immediately, and that I no longer wanted him to have a key. He is furious at me, saying his mother is in pieces, as all she wants is to know that she can see her granddaughter whenever she so pleases. I told him that that was in no way realistic, and that if she wished to spend time with my daughter, she could message or call me and I'd bring her over with me there in attendance. This wasn't good enough, and now him and his family are not speaking to me. So am I the a-hole? Am I the a-hole for alienating my daughter against her mother and allowing her to live with me? My ex-wife Stacy and I, 37 male, met at a party in college and hit it off. We dated for 3 years during college. During the relationship, I made it clear I didn't want kids. Right after we graduated, Stacy got pregnant. She said it was caused by birth control failure. This is important for later. I didn't want the kid and tried to convince her to terminate or give the baby up for adoption, but she wanted to raise the kid. I really wanted to leave but felt guilty, so I married her out of guilt. After our daughter Madison was born, I started getting depressed. I became an alcoholic. I tried really hard to be a good dad to her. I really tried my best. When she was 5, I realized how much I hated my life. I filed for divorce and left. I made sure to always pay child support. I still loved Madison, I just couldn't be a good parent to her at a time. I stayed in Chicago for a bit, but eventually moved to Canada for a job. Still, I felt like I had no purpose. I was still depressed, and I was still drinking. I was in a pretty dark place. I even lived in my car for 3 months. Then I met my current wife, Amanda, 33 female, and we started dating. She cared about me, and I started getting my life back on track. I left my toxic job, found a good apartment, started going to AA meetings, and started seeing a therapist. During this time, I contacted Stacy and asked to see Madison. I begged and showed her that I was sober, but she wouldn't let me. I tried several times, but Stacy wouldn't let me. I started a business 6 years ago, and it's done incredibly well in the last 3 years. It's pulled in $3 million in profit last year. Then Amanda and I got married. I was finally able to hire a good attorney, and after a complicated legal battle, I was given holidays and summers with Madison. Madison was a little difficult at first, but I have explained everything to her, and she was really understanding. Madison, 15 female, and I now have a really good relationship. I have tried to co-parent respectfully with Stacy, but she has been really difficult to communicate. She doesn't tell me certain matters, and she sends threatening voicemails, etc. I also know that Stacy told some pretty bad crap about me to Madison. Stacy told Madison I loved alcohol more than her, that I never sent them any money, despite the fact I never missed a payment. 2 days ago, Madison called me and told me that she and her mother had a fight.